Hello everyone and welcome to the Wasteland review and deck list video. In this video we'll be looking at the deck list first, and then I will go into a more deep dive on the cards and how they work and what the kind of maybe the best little bits of combos are for the deck. So without further ado, let's take a look at the deck list and we'll go from there. I will have this deck in the description down below on Shadow Showdown, which is a pretty good site for being able to do some test hands and see if the deck seems to work well for you or not, and then you can create your own deck list and go from there. The developer recently released an update that allows users to set email alerts for individual card prices based on their TCG player prices. Then, when the card matches that price threshold that you set, you get an email on it so you can go and buy the card. You can set up to 5 alerts for free, or if you support Shadow Showdown, you can set up to 20 alerts. So the deck is 3 Dead to Rights, 3 Soul Conversion, 3 Il'gyno Horror Stray, 3 Vagabond Lizard, 3 Whispers of a Dream, 3 Skeleton Dreamer, 3 Wandering Chef, 3 Dublame Duke and Dame, 3 Wretch, 3 Great Pick Corpse, 2 Goldmine Necromancers, 3 Ishilindrig Gilded Autocrat, 2 Odile Black Swan, and 3 Zelganea the World. The Evo deck is 2 Dublame Duke and Dame, 3 Ishilindrig, 2 Wretch, 2 Wandering Chef, and 1 Zelganea O Great World. Generally speaking, I'll be going from left to right as far as reviewing the cards, and if they are relevant and maybe near each other, I will just have them on the same slide. But we're starting off with Dead to Rights. It's a 1-cost spell that says, quick, select an enemy follower on the field and give it -2/-2. It does have an additional effect that's the first effect above that says you can banish this card and Ishilindrig Gilded Autocrat from your cemetery. Select an enemy follower on the field and engage it. The top effect, if you're not familiar with the cards at the moment, might seem kind of random and not make much sense, but as we get deeper into this, it'll make more sense. But for now, it is just a really good, if not basically better, Angelic Snipe, where Angelic Snipe says deal 2 damage at quick speed to an enemy follower. This is at quick speed, give it -2/-2 instead. The next 2 cards don't technically relate to each other directly, but they do kind of go like peanut butter and jelly together, so I'm just kind of putting them both on the screen at the same time, especially since I'd be just talking about both of them one after another, so I'll just have them both on screen. First up is Il'gyno Horror Stray. She's a 1-cost 1/1 follower, and for the sake of logic and thinking about her, I'm going to skip over her fanfare for the moment and just talk about her last words. Her last word says, put this card into the owner's EX area and then bury the top card of your deck. What this means is she effectively never dies unless she gets banished or, returned back to the deck or returned back to hand. But normally when she dies, she returns back to your EX area and you mill the top card of your deck, which effectively is the replacement card for her that she would normally, be in when she's in the cemetery. Her fanfare, now that we're switching back over to that, says you can select a Wasteland follower that costs 3 or less in your cemetery, and if you have Necrocharge 10, you may summon it, and if you do, you banish Il'gyno from the game. The reason why I explained it this way is because the last words is going to happen much more frequently at the beginning of the game, and then the fanfare is what stops her cycle of recursion from, the field to the cemetery, back to the EX area field, cemetery, EX area, and the fanfare is what finally banishes her away to actually get to other followers in your cemetery. A very good, if not potentially the best card that goes well with Il'gyno is Soul Conversion, which is a 1-cost quick spell that says you can select a follower on your field, destroy it, and draw 2 cards. With Il'gyno being a 1-cost, it's a pretty easy and cheap option to basically pay 2, and you cycle 2 cards, well, quote-unquote 2 cards, but the cycle 2 cards and then have Il'gyno just be recurred back to the EX area and you mill 1 card and then you can play Il'gyno again later on. Now you might be wondering what 3-cost or less Wasteland followers that can be summoned with Il'gyno. We will get there soon, but just keep 3-cost or less Wasteland followers in mind, and it doesn't have to necessarily be 3 costs, it can be less, and it can actually also certainly be non-Abysscraft, because there are 3-cost or less Wasteland followers that are neutral as well. Up next is Vagabond Lizard. It's a 2-cost 2/2 neutral Wasteland follower, and on fanfare you may put a Bullet Bite token into your field or your EX area. In this case, you're probably going to just always do the field. Rarely would you put in the EX area. His last words is you put a Dutiful Steed token into your EX area. So that one is obviously mandatory in the EX area, but that's fine. It's not a huge deal. Also on the card text there, you can see what the Bullet Bike and Dutiful Steed tokens are. The Bullet Bike is an amulet that costs 1 that says you can bury the Bullet Bike token, select a follower on your field, give it Rush, and if it's a Wasteland follower, give it +1 attack. And the Dutiful Steed is an amulet as well that costs 1, and it says bury this card, select a follower on your field, and if it's a Wasteland follower, give it +1/+1. Now these amulets might sound random and nothing super special, but bear with me as we still go through this deck list. I know I feel like I'm kind of leaving a lot to hang for you guys to mentally keep note of, but I will obviously mention the relevance of these tokens as we come across the followers as well that care about these tokens. Taking a slight detour from all the Wasteland cards, we are going to talk about Whispers of a Dream for a second. It's a 2-cost quick spell that says select an enemy follower that costs 3 or less on the field, destroy it, and bury the top card of your deck. There's a lot of really good 3-cost or less followers in the game, so the fact that at quick speed you just have something that can easily deal with anything regardless of stats is pretty good. The next Wasteland card we're going to talk about is Skeleton Dreamer. It's a 2-cost 2/3 follower that says whenever this follower gains attack or defense, it gets Storm, and then last words, you summon a Bullet Bike token and bury the top card of your deck. So the point of this card is to be able to sacrifice the Bullet Bike or the Dutiful Steed to give it a stat buff, and then Storm to deal some decent damage. Also keep in mind that if you have multiple amulets on the board that give stat buffs, you could just drop multiple Bullet Bikes or Dutiful Steeds, or there's another token that is not really used at all, but technically the Arcane Personnel Carrier would give it Storm as well, so you could drop multiple tokens on this to just give it easy buffs and still gain Storm. Next is the Wandering Chef. He's a 2-cost 2/2 that evolves for 1, and on Fanfare, if there's a mount card on your field or your EX area, your leader gets +2 defense, and on Evolve, he gets the +1/+1 stat buff, and on Evolve, you look at the top 4 cards of your deck, and you can reveal Wasteland card, from among them, and add it to your hand, and then put the rest in the bottom of your deck in any order. Ultimately, he's just a really good consistency card for the deck, so between the Soul Conversion with Ilgano earlier and then Wandering Chef, you should be able to get to Ice Shieldring pretty consistently and pretty well, and Ice is kind of the big crutch of the whole deck, so you kind of want to make sure you have him when you're ready for your more later turns. Next is not a Wasteland card, but it is just a good card in general. It's Do Blame Duke and Dame. He's a 2-cost 2/2 that on Fanfare you bury the top card of your deck, and then you can pay 1 to evolve them, and on Evolve you can select an enemy follower on the field and deal 2 damage, but if you're a Necrocharge 10 you deal 4 damage instead. With how much cards tend to make you mill with Ilgano or the Skeleton Dreamer when it dies of last words and other things, getting to Necrocharge 10 shouldn't be a huge deal, and Do Blame just really helps kind of deal with multiple small threats on the board. Next up is the Wretch, which is a 3-cost 3/2 Wasteland follower, so keep Ilgano in mind with the Wretch as I talk about him. He can evolve for 1, however you can only activate it if this follower was put onto the field from the cemetery. He does have Rush innately, and his last words is you summon a Bullet Bike token and bury the top 2 cards of your deck. His on Evolve turns him into a 4/3 with Storm, and on Evolve you can select an enemy follower on the field and deal 5 damage, and then he still retains the Bullet Bike summon effect on last words, and you mill the top 2 cards of your deck. If you haven't noticed already with Ilgano's Fanfare, you can resurrect the Wretch back with her Fanfare, and obviously Ilgano gets banished, and by doing that, it does allow you to pay 1 to evolve it and for it to get Storm, and if you have some Bullet Bikes on the board already, or the Dutiful Steeds, give it a buff. It already has Storm, and, you know, with the on-evolve of being able to deal 5 damage to an enemy follower, that would probably get rid of any kind of, like, warder the opponent might have, so then you can actually, you know, swing for some decent damage. Up next is the Great Pit Corpse, which is a 3-cost 3/3 follower that's also Wasteland, so keep that in mind with Ilgano's Fanfare as well. His Fanfare is you can bury another card, select an enemy follower on the field and deal 4 damage, and once per turn when a 1-cost token card you control leaves the field, you summon a token of the same name. So this works with the Dutiful Steed, with the Bullet Bike, and I guess Arcane Personnel Carrier if you do somehow get it on the board. But also keep in mind that it does work pretty well with Ilgano, since she just gets destroyed and sent to the cemetery, and then you just mill 1 card and put her back onto the EX area only to recall her again. So she kind of pseudo works with Great Pit Corpse pretty well. Obviously, she's not a token, so it's not like she'll automatically just come back to the board, but, one play point just to replay her is not a huge deal. The card on the left is the one from set 11, and the one on the right is a promo card. I'm not sure at this point how you can get the promo card version, but it is the exact same card. I just wanted to point it out because there might be some deck lists you might look at that have it, and you might be confused as far as what card it is, because it's clearly a very different card art style than the original Great Pick Corpse. I was a little confused when I first saw the art, and I realized as I was looking at Japanese deck lists after a little bit that it was Great Pick Corpse, but it was a promo and different, the waifu art style and everything. It just kind of threw me off for a minute. I was just like, what is this card? I don't know what card this is, so I'm just kind of giving everyone an FYI. Next is Goldmine Necromancer. He's a 5-cost 4/5 that on fanfare you can select an enemy follower on the field and a Wasteland follower that costs 3 or less in your cemetery, and if you have Necrocharge 10, you deal 4 damage to the first follower, the enemy follower, and then you summon the second follower. So the 2 prime targets for his fanfare effect are basically the Wretch and Great Pick Corpse, but Skeleton Dreamer probably isn't a bad choice either, especially if you have a token on the field that can give it a stat buff to give it Storm. He's also a 5-cost card, which works well with the Magic Train token, which we'll get to in just a second with Ice Shillandrig. And on to the star of the show, Ice Shillandrig Gilded Autocrat. He's a 5-cost 5/5 follower that can evolve for 1, and his fanfare is if you have no Magic Train token on your field, you get to summon 1, and whenever this card becomes engaged, each opponent discards a card. On Evolve, he becomes a 6/6, and his On Evolve effect is you can discard a card, select 2 followers in your cemetery, and add them back to your hand. He still retains the effect of whenever this card becomes engaged, each opponent discards a card, and then during your turn, whenever a player discards a card, select an enemy follower on the field and engage it. The Magic Train token that he spawns is a 5-cost 4/5 amulet, although it doesn't have 4/5 innately, but we'll get to that in a second. It has an effect of you can pay 1 play point and rest any number of followers that cost a total of 5 or more on your field to maneuver it, and when you maneuver it for the turn, it becomes a follower with 4/5. Its strike effect is you can select an engaged enemy follower on the field, destroy it, and give your leader 2 defense. So there's a lot to unpack here, starting with Ice Shillandrig. The fanfare obviously summons the Magic Train, but on the Evolve, the discard a card effect to grab 2 followers back, keep in mind that is optional because it has the colon, so the colon means the discard a card is a cost, and costs are optional. But keep in mind, too, that the last effect on his Evolve that says during this turn, whenever a player discards a card, select an enemy follower on the field and engage it, that counts for both you and your opponent. So the on Evolve of discarding a card to grab back 2 followers lets you engage an enemy follower that way. And then when you want to tap Ice to maneuver the Magic Train and your opponent has to discard a card because Ice got engaged, that also makes it where a enemy follower can also get engaged. So you can engage potentially 2 followers, if not 3, if you banish Dead to Rights and Ice Shillandrig from the cemetery to engage an enemy follower. Just kind of keep in mind the Dead to Rights effect from the first card in the set that I talked about. Also with the train, keep in mind that it's only a follower for the turn, so when the turn ends and the Magic Train's still alive with some damage, like let's say it still has like 2 defense left at the end of the turn, it turns back into an amulet, and amulets don't have HP, so it loses all the damage, and it just becomes a statless amulet again until your next turn. With the Magic Train token, keep in mind too that Goldmine Necromancer is also a 5-cost follower, so even if you don't have Ice on the board, Ice dies, let's say 1 turn, but obviously the Magic Train might still survive because it's an amulet, and amulets are pretty hard to destroy. You could always play Goldmine Necromancer the next turn, resurrect a few followers, and then pay 1 to engage the Necromancer to make the Magic Train maneuver and become a follower for the turn again. As far as Ice's on Evolve effect of discarding a card to select 2 followers, you can't discard a card and then re-grab it with the 2 followers aspect of the effect. You have to target basically the 2 followers that you want that are already in cemetery and then discard a card. Also, you can grab other copies of Ice with his on Evolve effect, so he's very recursive within himself. The penultimate card is Odile Black Swan. She's a 5-cost 6/4 that on fanfare you deal 2 damage to each enemy leader and enemy follower on the field. If you have Necrocharge 20, she also has Storm. And then on strike, you have the same effect of dealing 2 damage to each enemy leader and enemy follower on the field. What's normally going to happen with her is you're probably going to play her, deal 2 damage to the field and to your opponent, and that might clear out a few smaller followers that are not a huge deal, but it also might soften up some of the bigger followers that maybe you can run into with the Magic Train or other followers that you have on the field. Since she is a 5 cost, you can also pay 1 and engage her to maneuver the Magitrain and swing with the Magitrain as well. So that works. Another card option that I think might be viable as well is Underworld Watchman Kawi. He's a 5 cost 5/5 with Ward, and on last words, you can select an enemy follower on the field, destroy it, and give your leader plus X life. X equals the selected follower's attack. So by easily just engaging him for the maneuver of the Magitrain, it just instantly turns on his Ward as well. And he's a really annoying body that a lot of decks struggle to deal with. Ultimately, between the two, I think they both have their pros and cons, so whatever you're dealing with or whichever you like most, give it a shot and see if you like it, and if not, try the other one, see if you like it more or less. The last card is number 21, Zelganea of the World, and it's advanced card, number 21, Zelganea, O Great World. From here on out, I'll reference the base form as just the World and the advanced form as O Great World, just for clarification. So the World is a 5 cost 5/5 that has 2 fanfare effects. Its first is you select an enemy follower on the field. If there are no other followers on your field, you can destroy it and draw a card. Its second fanfare effect is if your leader's defense is 10 or less, give yourself 5 life, and it has an act that costs 10 play points. You banish this card from the cemetery, and you may put the O Great World copy from your Evolved deck into your EX area. O Great World is a 10 cost 10/10 that says at the start of your end phase, if it's in your EX area, you deal 4 damage to each enemy leader and enemy follower on their field, and then it has a fanfare effect where obviously you have to pay 10 to play it, and upon fanfare you deal 10 damage to each enemy leader and enemy follower on the field. This is meant to be like the closer for the game. Once your opponent's at 10 life or less, you just pay 10. At that point, you're probably at the very late game anyways, and you just pay 10 to deal 10 to your opponent and just finish the game. What is also really strong with the World is the fact that it is a 5 cost follower, so you can pay 1 and engage Zelganea to maneuver the Magitrain, and since the Magitrain always resets back to an amulet at the start of your, well, at the start of your turn it's going to be an amulet, but it resets back to an amulet at the end of your turn. But since there are basically probably going to be no followers on your field, you can play Zelganea, probably at least pop an enemy follower for free and draw a card, and then, you know, gain some life if you're at 10 life or less, but then you can also pay 1 to engage Zelganea and then maneuver the Magitrain. And that's pretty much it for Wasteland. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. And if you like the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more. And if you have, any thoughts or opinions or anything, let me know in the comments below. Thanks. Bye.